I'm so excited to be here today to do another Colorwork hat with you. I love Colorwork, so let's jump right in. The supplies you'll be needing for this cute hat. Let's first talk about the yarn. This is the wool of the Andes tweed, and this is just wool of the Andes worsted. They're all worsted weight yarn. This is the wreath heather. This, I believe, is the Persimmon heather. It's the same one I had used over here. And then just a neutral white. I might change my mind on these colors as we get going, but this is what I've chosen so far. Sometimes I have the hardest time deciding on color combinations. I love how this adult size hat worked out, and today I'll be using these colors to make a baby size hat. You will also need 2 crochet hooks. You'll need the 5mm to work the body of the hat and the 4mm G hook to work the ribbing along the bottom. I am using the Tulip red set. I recently got this. I love it. I like the way these hooks work up. They're like butter. You will also need a pair of scissors, a yarn needle to weave in those ends. A stitch marker is pretty critical with this to keep track of your rounds. And then I just wanted to show you sometimes these little tools are awesome for checking your gauge. It's a 2x2 inch square or a 4x4, and I find it so nice. Just throw that on there, see what my gauge is to make sure I get that correct. Because when a hat is sized, you really want to make sure that your gauge is correct. Now with this pattern, we're going to talk about the split single crochet, also known as the waistcoat stitch. And most likely you will be able to meet the width quite easily. A lot of times when we're talking about the width of a stitch, the size of your crochet hook can affect that. But when it comes to the height, that can be a little bit more tricky and usually where people have troubles with the split single crochet. But I'm going to show you some tricks with that will make it super easy and you'll get used to it really quick. So let's go ahead and get started. Today we will be making the baby size hat. And if you want, grab a pom-pom when we're done to throw on a little bit of an extra flap. This is the adult and teen size. I've got a lot more repeats than we'll be working for the baby size. So you'll see 2 different charts in this pattern, and one, it doesn't make it quite as long because it's for a smaller little one. And this one is for an adult or a teen. This is really like the women's size. I am in love with it, so I hope you love it as much as I do. Let's jump right in. Now for the beginning of this pattern, I have switched my background color so that you can see this white against this background, but I'll be switching back to white once we start working 2 colors because then this color blends in. So we'll do the best that we can here. So to get started with the baby size, we are going to create a magic ring, and then we will be single crocheting 7 stitches into this magic ring. Now I just want to note, when you crochet these 7 stitches, when you yarn over and pull up a loop, I want you to pull that loop a bit higher than you normally do, and that will make the next round that we do much easier. Now that I've got my 7 stitches into that magic ring, I can start to close it, but I don't like to close it all the way. I like to have a little bit of space to play here. It really helps in working this next round. You will also want to be grabbing your stitch marker. It's really crucial for this pattern to mark the beginning of the round on every single round to know where you started. Since we're not joining, it's going to be seamless. So this very first stitch here, you can kind of see it. It has a V on the front. Hopefully my camera can pick that up and it's not too bright. But there's a V on the front of this stitch. We normally would enter above that, but we're going to enter right into the center of that V. And on the back side, we come out between the upside down V on the back. We're going to yarn over and pull up a loop. And when we pull up this loop, we're going to pull it higher than we originally think we would. We want to pull it at least the height of the first stitch, giving quite a bit of pressure, because when we yarn over and we finish that stitch, it gives us more space in this V for the next time we work around. Now it might feel awkward. We're just going to do 1 single crochet into every stitch here. I'm going to mark that first stitch for the round, But we definitely want to be pulling up, it's called the magic loop. We want to be pulling up that loop farther than we think we would, because that is our frustration with split single crochets, is that if we don't pull up that loop to create space in that V, the next round that we do, we will be so frustrated because our hook will not enter that stitch very well. It's hard to get in between those V stitches. So you really want to make sure that you're pulling up before yarning over and finishing that stitch. And you can see they even out quite well. They don't stay looking loose. They look quite nice as you work the next stitch after the stitch that you just worked that feels a bit loose. So I'm simply single crocheting 7 stitches for round 2 as well. Round 2 can be a bit tricky. You can single crochet this round if you prefer and start the split single crochets on round 3. Now that I've done round 2, I can go ahead and close that opening that I started with, and I feel much more comfortable now getting a little bit more to work with. For round 3, we will be increasing, and the way we're going to increase is we are going to do 2 split single crochets into each stitch around. So it's just about where you're entering. You'll do one and then another all into the same space, that V space, and be sure to mark the first stitch of your round. And we'll just keep working that all the way around. So we're increasing from 7 stitches to 14 stitches by doing 2 single crochet stitches into each, split single crochet stitches into each stitch around. So for the remainder of the body of this pattern, every stitch will be a split single crochet. Now for round 4, we are simply going to be doing 1 split single crochet into each stitch around. Be sure to mark that first stitch of your round, and we won't be increasing, so you're simply going to work 1 split single crochet into each stitch around. Now before we go any further, I just want to pull out the chart and start talking about that so you can be conscious of it if you prefer to work from charts only or if you're working it alongside the written pattern. So this is the baby size. This is the chart that I have set up with the colors I used. And this is the chart I was talking about that you can color in your colors to make it the colors that you're using. So for this chart, we see that round 1 and round 2, those were both 7 stitches. So this chart is repeated. This is just a section of the chart, and then you'll repeat each round, each one of these rows until you've completed the round. So for the baby size, we will end up having 7 of these chart repeats. When you see this symbol, that's where we increase. So it's just working that color, placing 2 stitches in one. And for us, we are coming up on round 5, which means we will be working this round where we will do 2 split single crochets into the first stitch and 1 split single crochet into the next, and then repeat that all the way around. These gray stitches just mean that there's no stitch. There's no stitch because as we increase, I need space on this chart when we get to the part where we are working all the stitches on this chart. So the gray area is just area we haven't increased to yet. This chart is worked from bottom up, from right to left for every single round. So that's how that will work. And then when you get to the color work, we'll talk about when you have sections of stitches where there's long stretches where we're going to carry our yarn on the back of our work, but then we're going to catch it. And then this is where we will also get into adding in our third color, which will be quite nice here as well. So I just wanted to cover that a bit. If you are working from the chart, I prefer charts. I absolutely love them. And you can also work from both or the written. I want to scroll down. The adult chart is a bit bigger. I just want to show you it has more repeats than the child size pattern has. And you can see more information about this on my blog. So like I had just stated, for round 5, we're going to be doing some increasing again. So we will do 2 split single crochets into the first stitch. And then you'll want to mark the first stitch of this round so you keep track of it. And then we will do 1 split single crochet into the next stitch. And we're going to be repeating that all the way around. So 2 split single crochets into the next. I'm making sure that I'm getting through that V on the front and on the underside as well. You'll kind of get a feel for it as you practice the stitch. The stitch does take practice and a little bit of different muscle memory to make sure that you are pulling up that loop high enough so that it's easy, and it should be worked as easily as a regular single crochet once you master it. Now at the end of round 5, we will do round 6, and round 6 is simply doing a split single crochet into each stitch around without any increasing. All right, for round 7, I've gone back to this backdrop because I'm going to be pulling in this nice green color. And for this round, we will be doing some color changes as well as some increasing. With color work, it's important that we take our time and really enjoy the process and not rush too fast. It's really about enjoying watching this work up. So here's what we're going to do for the first stitch in the round. So the first stitch in the round is a color change. For me, what I like to do is I'm going to back up to the last stitch of my round right before I finish that split single crochet, and I'm going to yarn over and finish that stitch with my new color. So now I'm ready to work the very first stitch of round 7 in my new color. I'm simply going to insert my hook, pull up a loop, but the very next stitch I will be going back to my color A. So I'm going to finish that with the color A, mark that first stitch of this round, and then I'm going to work the next part of this pattern, which is to do 2 split single crochets into the next. And then 1 split single crochet in color A into the next, but then I will be changing colors again. So before I finish that stitch, I'm going to yarn over with color B. Sometimes you can tighten that down if you've got it a bit loose. Then I'm going to do 1 with color B, change colors, 2 split single crochets into the next, and then 1 split single crochet. And that's our repeat. We're just going to keep doing that all the way around, taking our time to make sure that we are getting those increases and color changes all in the right spot. And that is the end of round 7. Now for round 8, you get a little bit of a break. We are simply going to be single crocheting in split single crocheting in every stitch around with the color A. Be sure to mark that first stitch in your round and then keep on going. Now we're ready to start round 9, and for round 9, I'm going to back up a bit to my last stitch of round 8 and yarn over with my new color because we're starting with color B at the beginning of round 9. It'll be the first stitch, and then I will do a split single crochet with the color A into the next stitch, but I want to make sure that I'm marking that first stitch of this round. And then in the next stitch we're going to do 2 split single crochets, so an increase again, and then a split single crochet into the next. And then we will be changing to color B and starting that repeat over again. So we do color B, switch and do color A for 1, 2 split single crochets into the next stitch, and then color A. And you'll repeat that all the way around. And then after you finish round 9, round 10 is a row without increasing, simply using your color A just like we did on round 8. Now we're ready for round 11, but there's a few things going on for round 11 that we've been building up to, but we are going to add one more thing in here. So I'm going to go ahead and undo my last stitch from round 10 and yarn over with color B so that I'm ready to start round 11. It starts the same as we have before in previous rounds, where we're going to start with the color B, then we're going to change to the color A for the next stitch. but you'll want to mark that first stitch in the round. Now the next 2 stitches will be in split single crochet, but just looking forward, we're going to have a long float along this back if we don't do something about it. We don't want the yarn we're carrying on the back of our work to have too long of strands. It could catch on our head. It could mess with our gauge. It's just not a great thing to have long floats. They never benefit us and they tend to hurt us. The reason why I carry my yarn on the back of the work, which is true Fair Isle style, is because it creates a better drape for the hat. By carrying the yarn on the back and not crocheting over it, it's a more flexible fabric. But when we know we're going to be carrying for more than about 3 stitches, we want to do something that's called catching our float. So I want to go ahead and show you what that means. I'm going to take my color B and lay it over my hook, go back to my color A, and then I'm just going to complete that next split single crochet, but it works over that color B a little bit. It catches it just on the back here. And then in the next stitch, I'm going to be doing 2 split single crochets and then 1 more. And then it's time to change back to the color B. But notice when we catch it, it creates a shorter float. It almost splits it into 2 floats, which is what we want. We don't want to be carrying it for too far. So this is our repeat. We start with the color B, then we're going to do 2 in the color A split single crochet, but we want to make sure to catch our yarn so we don't work all these stitches without catching. Then we'll do 2 split single crochets in the same stitch, 1 more split single crochet in color A, and then we will change back to color B. Be sure to take your time on this round. You really want to make sure that you're getting all those steps. I promise that your speed will increase the more you practice color work and you do color work and you get that muscle memory. The speed will come, so take your time and work that stitch pattern all the way around. For round 12, it's a repeat of round 11. We're just not increasing. It's just not increasing, but it's just doing that same pattern. So here is round 12 where I'm going to be doing the color work, but not increasing. So I'm simply going to be working color A into color A, color B into color B, but we want to make sure as we're working across all these stitches that we catch that yarn on the back to make a float that's quite nice, and we don't carry that color B all the way across the color A. Notice sometimes when I switch colors, my V is a bit too high. I simply tighten it down a little bit and then keep on going. And as you really get going with this, you'll see that like when you're picking that, notice I just grabbed it with my left hand really quick. You learn the motions that work best for you that increase the speed. Now for round 13, I'm going to do that off camera. That is just a round using the color A and doing an increase. Now for round 13, we will be working with just the color A. We'll start with a split single crochet and mark the first stitch, and then we will split single crochet in the next 2, and then the next one will be our increase where we do 2 split single crochets into the same stitch and then split single crochet 2. So that's our repeat all the way around. Now for round 14, we will be working this round without increasing, and we will be doing some color work again. So our very first stitch of round 14 will be in the color A, but then we're going to switch to our color B for the next one. Make sure you mark that first stitch in the round. And then after working a color B, we're going to go back and work 4 in the color A. Sometimes I really do like to catch my yarn if I'm working more than 3 stitches in a row. And now we go back to our color B. And then we will repeat those stitches again. So we'll start by doing our color A, then our color B, and then 4 in the color A, catching the color B on the back, and then last our color B. And we'll repeat that all the way around. Now we're ready for round 15, and for round 15, this will be the last time that we increase. We're going to start this round by doing a split single crochet in the color B and marking it, and then doing another split single crochet in the color B, and then we're going to change to the color A, and we're going to do 2 stitches, and then in the next one we will want to increase, and it's not a bad idea to catch your yarn when you create your next stitches so that we're not carrying too far, and then 1 more in the color A in the next stitch, and then we go back to the color B. So that's our repeat. It'll be 2B, 2A, increase with A, and then a B. And we'll do that all the way around. So now that we made it all the way around and we've completed round 15, it's time for round 16. This will be the last round I show of the colorwork portion because there's no new skills that you will be learning. You already know how to finish the rest of this hat. We will not be doing any more increasing, so you're just going to be doing the colorwork. For our very first stitch for round 16, it will be in the color B, and then we will switch to the color A. Mark that first stitch of the round, and then we will be doing 7 stitches of color A. But remember, whenever you're working that many stitches, you are going to want to catch your yarn on the back so that you create smaller floats. I love this part of the hat because this is where every single round starts to create an image, and we can really start to see that really cute pine tree work up on here. It's my favorite part when we're done increasing and we can just do the colorwork portion of the hat. So I'm going to go do this. I hope you enjoy this portion as well. Come on back when we are ready for the ribbing. Just kidding. I came back early before we go on to do that brim because on round 21, we actually will be working 3 colors together for 2 rounds. So round 21 and round 22, we're going to be having 3 strands of yarn. So I wanted to show you that round so it doesn't feel so overwhelming when you start this. I promise it's going to be just fine. So for round 21, I start my very first stitch with my color B. And we're going to go ahead and place a stitch marker in that for the beginning of the round. And then my next stitch is the color A. And then I go back to the color B for 2 stitches. And then this is where we will be bringing in our color C. So our color C will come in here and we will work all 3 colors for 2 rounds. But then by round 23, we can fasten off our color A. So we're going to do the next one in color C, but here's what we have to be conscious of. We need to be carrying our color A because we want that float to stay minimal. So when I do my color C, I'm going to catch the color A, and then I'll go back to my color B for 2 stitches. And now it's time to go back to our color A. Now here on this next stitch, when I work my color A, it's not a bad idea to catch color C behind here. And this is where these 2 rounds might take some slowing down. Do that, definitely slow down, and then it will work up nice and easy without too much frustration as long as you slow down, because you have to think through the 3 colors at once and when you need to catch that float on the back for each color. So it's just another step adding that 3rd color, but I promise it's not too bad. You just keep on going, keep thinking through each stitch. It's only for 2 rounds, and then you'll be able to fasten off the color A. So we'll keep repeating that repeat around and around, just being conscious about catching that yarn on the back every so often for each color. and then come on back for the brim. So now that I'm done with the colorwork portion of this hat, I'm going to be making the ribbing on mine this beautiful orange color, so my color C. So I can go ahead and fasten off that color B and just put that aside. Now for this ribbing, I'm going to go ahead and put my 5mm hook aside, and we're going to work this ribbing in a 4mm G hook. I'm going to slip stitch to the next stitch. And what that does is it kind of evens out the bottom of this here, so it's not such a jog at the end of our round. And I'm not going to worry about counting that slip stitch. We're just doing that to kind of even it out. And now we are going to chain 13 for this baby size. For the larger sizes, I do a couple more. Now for that very last chain, I like to kind of tighten it down. It is our turning chain. And then in the second chain from the hook, we are going to single crochet and then single crochet into each stitch across. So that will be a total of 12 stitches. Now that I've done 12 single crochets, I'm going to slip stitch to the next 2 stitches along the bottom of this hat body. So I slip stitch 2 from the hat body, and then turn and skip those 2 slip stitches, and working in the back loop only, single crochet into each stitch across, so a total of 12 stitches. And from here on out, we will be working these stitches in the back loop only, and that's what helps create that rib. And now I'm going to turn again. And you can chain 1. If you don't want to, you don't have to do a turning chain for this. It really doesn't make much of a difference. Now working in the back loop only, we're going to single crochet into each of the 12 stitches across. So here's where we're just doing our repeats. I will single crochet the 12 stitches and then once again slip stitch the next 2 stitches from the hat body, turn, skip those 2 slip stitches, and work the 12 stitches back down. We're just going to keep doing that in rows, building this all the way around, and then when we come on back, I will show you how to join your starting edge with your current finishing edge once we get around. So I'll see you when you have worked up the ribbing all the way around the bottom of this hat. So now that we've worked all the rows all the way around, it's time to join our current edge with our first edge. And the way to do this is with a slip stitch. Now a lot of times I still do like to work through the back loop only on this side, current side, but it's really up to you. It's not required. You can work through both loops, but then you're simply going to grab a loop from your first edge, yarn over, and slip stitch that. And we're going to be doing that all the way down. We're going to grab our current edge, grab a loop from our first edge, and slip stitch those together. Once you've worked down all 12 of the stitches, you can go ahead and fasten off your yarn and then grab your tapestry needle and weave in that end. Now with these smaller sizes, they do tend to taper to a point, which I think is absolutely adorable. I love it. The larger sizes don't tend to do that as much. They're a little bit more flat on top, but I think it's such a cute matching hat. You can flip up your brims for a nice short double brimmed bottom and then go ahead and place a pom-pom on the top. I hope that you have enjoyed this video and this pattern. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel and come back for more projects soon.